It is Saturday, the 7th of December, and it happens to be the 6th day of the observance of Chalica, the Unitarian Universalist holiday, if you want to use that term. That's the term that the founders of Chalica use, holiday. We can also think of it as an observance. Because let's face it, there's no time off for Chalica. it's not a holiday where you get a day off, but essentially it's a celebration, if you want, of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. Today is the 6th day of Chalica, and so that is dedicated to the 6th principle of Unitarian Universalism, which calls for affirming and promoting the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Sounds very nice, doesn't it? You know, world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Yeah. There's only one problem. The Unitarian Universalists can't even live up to that in terms of their own community. You know, Unitarian Universalists seem to be almost incapable of creating their own religious community where there is peace and liberty and justice for all. Far from it when it comes to the issue of clergy abuse. When somebody is abused by Unitarian Universalist clergy, and they complain about that abuse, well, all of a sudden, all 7 of the principles of the Unitarian Universalist Association get thrown out the window. The first principle, which calls for a, how can I put it, just a second here, affirming and promoting, again, they use that term, affirming and promoting, a lot. So affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, if I remember correctly. So the idea is to basically promote dignity and promote the worth of each individual person. Well, you know, when you file a clergy misconduct complaint, you're suddenly a pretty worthless, and your dignity goes out the window with the UUA. The second principle calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And again, when you complain about a minister behaving in an abusive manner, more often than not, the complaint is ignored or dismissed arbitrarily. Little or nothing is done to hold a minister accountable. So again, you know, no justice, no equity, and no compassion, far from it. Some more people coming out of church here. So yeah, there goes the second principle out the window. Third principle, well, it's about acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth in Unitarian Universalist churches. So, yeah, it depends on the situation in terms of clergy abuse, but the fact of the matter is, clergy abuse or not, there are plenty of Unitarian Universalists who are quite unaccepting of people for various reasons, and I don't mean good reasons. I mean there's good reasons not to be accepting of certain behaviors and so on, but no, you know, if we bring it back to the issue of intolerant atheist Unitarians, who are a big part of the problem, and I'm not saying all atheist Unitarians are intolerant, but a certain percentage are. And you're a God-believing person going to a Unitarian church. You know, the word Unitarian means belief in one God. So you go to this Unitarian church expecting that people will respect your belief in God, but no. You will have the intolerant atheists making a beeline for you so that they can, you know, at minimum subject you to condescension. You know, sort of the absolute low end of Unitarian atheist intolerance is sort of this condescending sense of superiority. You know, that you're just silly if you believe in God and so on. And it just goes from there to various forms of verbal and psychological abuse, insults, even defamation, and so on. You know, all kinds of discrimination of various kinds, some subtle and some less subtle. So much for acceptance, and so much for your spiritual growth. When you're a God-believing person in a Unitarian church confronted by the intolerant atheists in the Unitarian church. Principle 4, free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And yeah, when you bring that around to clergy abuse and other injustices and abuses within the Unitarian Universalist religious community, you know, all of a sudden they're not too keen on knowing the truth. Not only are they not interested in knowing the truth, they actually go to considerable lengths to try to cover up the truth, which is what this chalk slogan's all about. Unitarian perversion of justice covers up UUA clergy abuse. So it's not just a question of failing and refusing to engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning in order to practice justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. No, it is actually a question of covering up, actively, knowingly, willfully covering up the truth in order to pervert justice, and even perverting justice in order to cover up the truth. And specifically, in terms of the most recent foolishness on the part of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, I am actually being accused of the crime of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So that's it. I'm being accused of this crime because supposedly, allegedly, I've made false allegations about Unitarian Universalist ministers engaging in pedophilia and rape. Well, guess what? I haven't made any false allegations about Unitarian Universalist ministers engaging in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. On the contrary, the allegations that I made, which are on the Emerson Avenger blog, are about Unitarian Universalists who've actually been convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and or rape. Please note that I said and or. Yes, one of the Unitarian Universalists who I blogged about, one Richard Buell of First Parish, Norwell, in the Boston area, was convicted of the forcible rape of preteen girls who were no older than 12 years old at the times that the rapes took place. I described Richard Buell as a pedophile rapist in my blog post about his case, because that's exactly what he was. You know, he was a rapist, and his victims were no older than 12 years old. That's a pedophile rapist in my view, and I would expect the vast majority of Canadians and Americans. And the interesting thing is, Richard Buell, to the very best of my knowledge, wasn't even a Unitarian Universalist minister. So the one Unitarian Universalist who I described as a pedophile rapist wasn't even a minister, and yet, in order to try to intimidate me into deleting my blog posts about Richard Buell and other Unitarian Universalist sex offenders, the Unitarian Universalist Association thought it'd be a really good idea to accuse me of the crime of blasphemous libel. And the interesting thing is that if you go and you look at the Canadian Criminal Code section dealing with blasphemous libel, the law is incredibly vague. It basically doesn't even say what blasphemous libel is. The only way to find out what it is to look at jurisprudence. When you look at jurisprudence, you get a better idea of what blasphemous libel is. And essentially, blasphemous libel is insulting the most deeply held religious beliefs of a religion. So when it comes right down to it, making, even if somebody actually did make false allegations about ministers or priests or clergy of a religion engaging in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, that would not really constitute blasphemous libel. So basically, the UUA's lawyer was full of shit on two counts. He was full of shit when he said that I made unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And he was full of shit when he said that such unfounded and vicious allegations would amount to the crime of blasphemous libel. Wrong on two counts, my friend. That's what I call perversion of justice. And that is a perversion of justice that seeks to cover up and hide the truth, that seeks to prevent a person from exercising their constitutionally guaranteed right to engage in freedom of speech. So yes, this is a clear violation of several of the principles of Unitarian Universalism, but not the least of them being the sixth principle, which calls for world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. So, yeah, this is hardly justice when you falsely accuse someone of a crime in order to try to diminish their liberty. And of course, I mean, the worst case scenario is that somebody's actually convicted, and then your liberty's like really gone, you're in prison, you've got a criminal record. So this is the extent to which Unitarian Universalist religious leaders go in order to cover up and hide clergy abuse, or indeed rape and pedophilia engaged in by ordinary Unitarian Universalist layperson. So yeah, just not really doing too well on the seven principles front there, which is why we're here tonight, observing Chalica and concentrating mainly on the sixth principle, since it is the sixth day of Chalica. But yeah, just really quite incredible, the lies that Unitarian Universalists will tell in order to cover up and hide their sins of commission, as it were. So yeah, it's looking like this carol singing event is well and truly over. I see very few people in the church, but it's obvious that lights are on and so on. There's still people hanging on. I got a few more coming out now. So, we shall continue to circulate here, but I think we're pretty well done for the evening. So, essentially, there was this event tonight, Carmina and Friends, or maybe it's pronounced Carmina and Friends. Basically, that's the Carmina or Carmina choir. Invite you to an evening of merry seasonal music. Festive Célébra Noël. That French seems a bit off. But anyway, yeah, merry seasonal music. And then, and a sing-along, Chante encore. So essentially what it comes down to is you have the Carmina choir performing, but also inviting the participants to sing along with them if they want, but not necessarily needing to. So that's what we had tonight, and that's why I'm here, because I knew that a fair number of non-Unitarians were likely to show up for this event, and in fact, it seems that the vast majority of people that actually attended this event were non-Unitarians. I actually saw very few church members attending this. So I was actually expecting more members of the Unitarian Church to attend this event, and it doesn't seem to have panned out that way. So I got a few people left, but I think yeah, we're pretty well finished with this protest. And I do believe it's been quite worthwhile. I'm not saying I couldn't have done something else tonight, but I've had some interesting conversations as usual with members of the public, so it's always nice to have a conversation with you know, ordinary Canadian, as it were, about the issues, and as usual have a high level of understanding and support from the public, and very little negative reaction tonight, now that I think about it. I've said before, you know, I have a pretty good handle on this. You know, most people don't indicate what they think one way or the other. So you don't know exactly what those people who make, you know, no interaction with you are actually thinking. But in terms of those people that actually do interact with me in one way or another, the response is overwhelmingly positive and supportive. It is at least 8 out of 10 people that are actually indicating support, and at most 2 out of 10 that are indicating a negative response, a disapproving response. But in real terms, it's probably closer to 9 out of 10 that are approving. I'm trying to be reasonably conservative here. And my experience is that the vast majority of people support the protest when they show any sign of you know, responding to the protest, and only a small minority actually show disapproval. And the interesting thing too is that on those occasions where somebody has made a negative response to the protest, and I've been able to speak with them, I've actually been able to change their minds a couple of times after explaining to them what it was all about. You know, they basically, I think, you know, some people think that it's just not kosher to protest in front of a church. You know, this just is not done, kind of thing. But for whatever reason, you know, a few people do show disapproval, and sometimes it's just sheer bloody-mindedness, sheer ignorance. You know, there are people who think, you know, that all one-man protesters are crazy, kind of thing. So it doesn't matter how just your cause may be. If you're a one-man protester, they're going to have a negative attitude. Nonetheless, like I said, tonight, I'm trying to think if there, well, put it this way, there's no negative reaction that leaps to mind. I'd be the first to say, you know, if there had been, you know, which doesn't mean to say that there wasn't one. I just don't have any recollection of any obvious negative response from anyone. And I definitely remember a fair number of positive and supportive responses, at least 3 or 4, if not half a dozen or so. I think we did okay on the approval rating tonight. And as I said, a few of the people that were of a supporting nature, or at least empathizing nature, you know, had some good conversation with them. So, like I said, it's getting a little chilly out here. I'm actually feeling the cold, mainly in the fingers. You know, when you're sort of holding a picket sign in each hand, I guess after a while your fingers get cold. It's not like terribly freezing or anything, but it's cold, put it that way. It's not a cool, certainly not warm. It's a cold early December day. And I think, yeah, as a result of that, I think we shall just say enough's enough. We've had a good run tonight, and we shall pack things up. The only reason I was actually hanging around longer is I wanted to sort of hang around long enough that everyone left, and therefore would preserve my chalk slogans. Typically, the church members come out and do their best to erase the chalk slogans as soon as I leave, or soon after. So I just wanted to sort of minimize that possibility, but I guess I'm just going to have to live with the fact that the slogans are likely to be erased in the next 15 minutes to half an hour or something. I've got photos. That's one of the reasons that I take photographs of the protest, is so that I can basically prolong the life of my chalk slogans, if nothing else. That's not the only reason at all, but being able to take a good photograph of a slogan certainly preserves its life, and also increases how many people see it. So one last time, Unitarian perversion of justice covers up UUA clergy abuse. That's very much in alignment with the sixth principle. Well, not in alignment. In fact, it's the exact opposite. But that's the point. Is like this slogan is referencing the sixth principle, which calls for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. But the Unitarian Universalist Association, to say nothing of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, actually goes to considerable lengths to pervert justice in order to cover up and hide UUA clergy abuse. And this is essentially a perversion of justice to suppress liberty, to suppress freedom of speech. And it's not really a peaceful activity. So it is the absolute antithesis of the sixth principle, the exact opposite. Again, the other slogan here, Unitarian atheists misuse blasphemy law to cover up clergy abuse. Again, 100% true. And when we look at the sixth principle, which calls for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, well, I'm sorry, but misusing and abusing Canada's blasphemy law in order to try to intimidate me into removing blog posts from the Emerson Avenger blog that speak about Unitarian Universalists who've actually been convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape is, again, a complete and flagrant disregard and indeed violation of the sixth principle. It's also a clear disregard and violation of the second principle, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. It's a violation of the fourth principle, which calls for free and responsible search for truth. Not only is it absolutely not a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, it is, again, an attempt to cover up and hide the truth and to make it difficult for other people to engage in free and responsible search for truth and meaning, because they basically hide the evidence. So that's that. Basically showing how several of the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism are disregarded and violated by the fact that the Unitarian Church of Montreal and the Unitarian Universalist Association misuse and abuse the Canadian Criminal Code to try to suppress peaceful public protest and also to force the removal of blog posts that tell the truth about Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse and other Unitarian Universalist injustices. So I see that the lights in the sanctuary are off, so the only light left is in the lobby area here. So yeah, we're getting down to the end of the story here. We're also getting down to the end of my half-hour segment of video. We're at 28 minutes. I'm just thinking it might be worth sticking around for a couple of minutes more. But then again, maybe not. I think we'll just call it a night. But what I think I'll do is I'll just keep an eye from a distance and see if somebody does come out of the church to try to get rid of the chalk slogans. Because that in itself is basically an act of censorship, an act of trying to hide what I have to say. Oh, look, I almost left. I managed to forget this picket sign, which was somewhat hidden. So, yeah, we don't want to lose that one. This is historical, this one. This picket sign dates back to, the fall of 2000. And this picket sign is like 13 years old. Pretty good shape considering. Yep, we're done for now. But yes, the image tarnishing minister originally applied to Reverend Ray Drennan, but I think it applies to UUA President Peter Morales these days, to say nothing of Reverend Diane Rollert, and any number of other Unitarian Universalist ministers whose behavior tarnishes the image of the